We now present another poorly researched history documentary from Clarke the Vogt Productions.
Of all the styles of music invented in America in the latter half of the 20th century, only one kind of music would end up being loosely described as rock and roll. This is the story of that loose description, a tale of people and instruments and occasionally electrical outlets all brought together to create a movement that created a generation that created some catchy tunes. This is the story of rock and roll. The story of rock and roll begins much the way it will almost certainly end, with one or more human beings. In this case, the one or more human beings was Ronald Rock, an entrepreneur and inventor. In the year 1911, Ronald Rock invented the electric guitar, the drum set, the keytar, and the double electric bass. Ronald Rock had a vision: to use these new creations to help him with his burgeoning textile business. Unfortunately, neither the drum set nor the guitars were any help at all in pleating skirts, and Ronald Rock went out of business quickly, and died 6 days later of hyperpolio. His inventions were ceremoniously stuffed into a black and white brick building, never to be used ever again. Until 40 years later, when his great-grandson Adolf Roll discovered them while drunkenly questing for the Fountain of Youth. When he sobered up 13 months later, he realized that the instruments could be connected to what were then called electrical outlets and played simultaneously. Adolf Roll used them to play what he called acid polka, a style of music unlistenable to anything living. Fortunately, Adolf passed away in his sleep while piloting a Zeppelin, and several hours later, Chuck Berry and Rich Little discovered his instruments and used them to create a music they called rock and roll, entirely by coincidence. 2 years later, Elvis Presley stole rock and roll music from Rich and Chuck in a daring daylight train robbery. Elvis enjoyed several years of popularity. He made a reasonable living at it, and then died, possibly in the 1970s, taking rock and roll to his grave with him, as requested in his will. No one would ever again use rock and roll to such popular effect, with the possible exception of Justin Bieber. And now, since you've all been so patient, here's that kitten one more time.